So go like this.
Oh, fine, sorry.
There you go.
Okay. Is it going already?
It's being streamed.
Is this currently going? Yeah, it's live.
Yeah, you might want to like move back a little bit. It'll be a little easier to. You can sit down. People can sit down. I realize it's Friday afternoon. Maybe people are probably in a rush. So basically, just to give a little background on why this is sort of a nice turn of events here. Yeah. So about by the beginning of the year. So I was at the time like in smicha part-time, doing some work, whatever it is. Basically, came out that at that time I needed to leave smicha and really go full-time pursue a parnasa, and it was sort of a trying time for me, trying to figure out how to balance my learning and everything else that I'm doing, and so what came out of that whole cheshbon, including speaking with a few of my rebbeim. One thing I ended up doing was deciding, so on the subway to and from first school and then work, so I was going to learn Mishnayos. I was actually on the way to Mishnayos Mikra, on the way back Mishnayos, kind of more lightly mudim that I could really focus on in a more distracting environment. So it took a number of months, and there were months in the middle where I was doing learning halacha for Pesach, things like that. But basically, over the last significant number of months, so this whole all Seder Nashim I finished pretty much entirely on the subway. I call it my subway series, if series being a reasonable translation for Seder. So the reason that's actually very relevant is because when I finished, it was very exciting. The last Mishnah in Seder Nashim actually has a lot to do with Torah perspectives on Talmud Torah and Parnasa. So with that in mind, I'll just go through the last Mishnah, make a couple of ha'aros at the end, and then make the Siyum. So at the end, it's dealing with issues of yichud and related concerns. Rabbi Omer lo yira ravak behema. So Rabbi says that a person who is single should not be a shepherd for animals. So two men who are single should not sleep in one garment. Chacham matir and Chacham allow this because lo nechshedu Yisrael mishkav zachor, lo nechshedu Yisrael arvias behema. Kol she'esko en anashim lo yisachin im anashim. So then, if a person's primary asek is with nashim, they're involved in some kind of trade that mainly centers around women, right? Say a gynecologist or someone who sells perfumes, anything sort of like that. Lo yisachin im anashim, so should not go into yichud. It doesn't mean to say that everyone else is allowed to go into yichud, but what it means is they have certain stricter rules for yichud, which we won't get into in a second. So a person should not teach his son an umnos bein hanashim. So it's very interesting. The pashup shot of this is just you shouldn't teach your son one of these trades, which is mainly involved with nashim. But Meiri brings another shot, which Meiri never says where he gets things from, but there was no footnote or anything, so I have no idea where he gets this from. But he says this is actually you shouldn't teach your son a trade through coeducation. He says that you shouldn't teach him an umnos where the limud itself is going to be bein hanashim. So I thought that was interesting. But you have different gears in the Mishnah. The gears that we have in the way it's printed in the Gemara is umnos hanashim. So then that shot wouldn't work, but still an interesting shot. Rabbi Meir Omer. So now once we've mentioned this idea of not teaching your son umnos bein hanashim, so it gets into issues of umnos. Rabbi Meir Omer lo milamid adam es beno umnos nikia v'kalos. Right? Meir says that a person should always teach his son an umnos that is nikia v'kala. Translating that is a little bit difficult, but nikia probably means nikia me'avon, right? It's a trait that you won't be sort of forced into uncomfortable halachic situations, let's say, right? Situations where we'll get into examples in the Mishnah, but basically situations where a person is very much tempted to engage in chait. And then kala means it doesn't involve a lot of tircha. The Gemara says this is referring to maybe a certain kind of needlework. That's a sort of a very simple trade. It doesn't involve a lot of effort, like running a mill or farming or that sort of thing. So you should have sort of a lighter trade. And you should daven to the one for whom the riches and possessions are his, right? Meaning that you don't put your faith in the trade itself to make you rich. Rather, you learn a trade. You have to do your shadlos biosik in a trade. But in terms of getting rich, right? So you rely on the Kadosh Baruch Hu. You say, you daven that Kadosh Baruch Hu should give you wealth through your parnasa. Every trade in the world has people who are poor and people who are rich who are osek in it. The poverty or being rich are not from the trade itself. Rather, it's all according to the person's chus. And then there's like a huge Derais Yisrael here, and like everyone is trying to understand how Hishtalos and Bitachon and what chus works in chus gadol and mazel, and like it goes on forever. But basically, there's a lot to talk about that, the balance between tefillah and chus and Hishtalos, but not for now. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer Ra'isam Yamecha Chayav Ov Sheish Lahem Bonus. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says he has a rhetorical question, right? Have you ever seen a chay or an oaf that has some kind of trade, right? You don't see the owl's the shopkeeper and maybe Harry Potter or something. But in most normal, in the real world, you don't see these things. It's parnas in shlo b'tzar, right? So they get parnasa without any sort of tzar, right? The deer, runs around all day and it eats the grass and drinks the water and it's fine, right? Right? And the animals were only created to serve me, to serve human beings. Right? So I was created to serve the Rebbeinu Shalom. So I should also have parnasa without any tzar. So what's the deal? How come I have to work hard? Right? So the reason that I have to suffer and be osek parnasa is because I've done evil and I have cut off my parnasa. And that's why we have to work hard. I saw one in the first one, I can't remember which, because there's a lot that I looked into on this particular Mishnah. But maybe it's a reference to the Harishon, that the Harishon did the chait, and therefore, we have to, right? Therefore, what is it? Sorry? Yeah. Right. Abagurian ish tzadin or mishum abaguria. Lo yilamed adam es beno chamar, gamal, sapar, sapan, roeh, v'chen bani. Shomnas and listim. So Abu Gurian Yishaidan says the name of Abu Gurian. You shouldn't teach your kid to be a donkey driver, camel driver, a sapar, like a barber. A sapan is a sailor, a shepherd, or a storekeeper, because all of them engage in theft, basically. Dagamalin, Ruban, Ksherim. Most camel drivers are ksherim because they go on long distances. Right, based on the shirim for Ona, so it comes out of camel driver's away from his home for 30 days. Right, he goes on these long journeys, so he's gonna he's gonna be in a lot of dangerous situations, far away from people, and he's gonna daven and turn his heart l'shamayim. Haspan Reuben Chasidim. Most sailors are Chasidim because they go on the longest journeys. Right, they're away for 6 months from their homes. Tov Shabarofim LeGehenom. The best among doctors goes to Gehenom. There's a lot of interesting discussion as to what that means. The most interesting shot I heard was that it's Daka the Tov Shabarofim. It's the most the most impressive of the doctors. He's the one who's going to be overconfident and basically prescribe drugs for patients that are going to harm them. Because if you're less confident, so then maybe you'll prescribe a weaker drug. You'll try things first. If you're very confident, then you'll just say this is what you're going to do, and you'll end up killing the patient. So there's a lot of interesting things to say about Tosh Barofim, but not for now. The best of the Tabachim is a partner of Amalek. So that's probably because using that even the Kasher Shabbat Tabachim is going to basically be Tola Lakula in terms of treifos on things that he's not sure about. He's going to be more heter la'atzmo. He's going to sell things that are treif. Rabbi Norai Omer Maniach Ani Kol Mil Shavolam V'Nim Lam Nismini Ela Torah. So Rabbi Norai says, I'm going to just leave all every Yomnos in the world, and I'm only going to teach my son Torah. She'adam Ochel Mischar B'Olam Hazeh V'Keren Kayemes L'Olam Haba. This person, the main schar of Torah is Olam Haba, but you still the keren of that, but you still eat the schar in Olam Hazeh. So it'll serve him in both Mazel and Haba. He'll be taken care of. Ushar Kol Onos Ein Kain, right? Every other Onos is not like that. She'adam Ba L'Idei Choli L'Idei Zikna L'Idei Yisurin. Person gets sick, old, or has some kind of yisurin come onto him. Right? He's not able to be able to take his malacha. He's going to starve to death. Torah is not like that. So it'll take care of him when he's young and give him hope when he's old. So when he's young, right, people who hope to Hashem are going to have renewed strength. They're still going to be fruitful in their old age. So this is also true of Avraham Avinu. As it says, Avraham was old and Hashem blessed Avraham with everything. Right, so you see that Avraham was osek b'Torah, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu blessed him with everything. He saw bracha in his old age. And how do we know that he was osek b'Torah? Matzinu she'asa Avraham Avinu es kol Torah kula ad shelo nitzna. Because we found Avraham Avinu was osek in the whole Torah. He performed the whole Torah even before it was given. Shneimar ekev asher shem Avraham b'koli vayishmor mishmarti mitzvosai chukosai v'sorosai. So the pasuk says that because Avraham listened in my voice and he performed all the mitzvos and the Torahs, and then the chukim, so therefore I'm going to give him all the schar and I'm going to make him into a great nation and all that. But we see that Avraham Avinu was keeping this Mishnayos of Hashem even before. So I just want to go back for 1 second to Rabbi Norai, because Rabbi Norai is very interesting, and all the Achronim get very upset at Rabbi Norai. Rabbi Norai says, I'm not going to teach my kid a parnasa. It's very strange because we have a number of Mekoros in Chazal that you have to teach your son parnasa. The Gemara says that if you don't teach your son parnasa, it's like you're teaching him listos, right? He's going to be a thief because he has nothing to eat. He doesn't have a trade. So what's the deal? Furthermore, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, it's Parak Beis Mishnah Beis, it says that Kol Torah she'eini malacha sofa b'teila. Right? If a person thinks he's going to beat the system, he's going to be osek b'Torah, and he's not going to touch anything with malacha, so it's not going to work. Right? The person's going to completely fail. And even the Torah you're not going to have in the end. So why is Rabbi Norai thinking he's going to be so smart? He's going to just teach his son Torah and it'll take care of him in the future and it's going to be great. When Chazal say against that. So there are a number of approaches in the Achronim, and I want to make just a little diuk in the Ramban. Very interesting diuk that I saw. So the Maharsha says that he doesn't really mean what he says. He doesn't mean that I'm just going to throw away all the umnos in the olam. He says what he means is the Torah is going to be keva. Right? He says maniach ani kviyus kol umnos sheva olam, and I'm going to teach my son Torah b'kviyus. I'll teach him malacha ba'arai. Right? That the main focus, right, whether it's a focus in time, a focus in this mental idea, that's another discussion. But somehow the keva is going to be the Torah, and the arai is going to be the malacha. But it doesn't mean that he's actually not going to do any malacha at all. I guess I took some notes. But the Pnei Yeshua, it said a very interesting shot that this is not for everyone. Right? That Rabbi Norai saw his son. He saw he's a Harif kid. He's real Tzur Merabanan, and he sees he's going to grow up to be the next Gadol Dor. He's going to be osek b'Torah with b'chol kocho, and certain people we can assume will have malachim nasis aydi acherim. Like most people, it's not malachim nasis aydi acherim; they have to actually do malacha. But for Rabbi Norai, he saw his son is going to be zochet to that. So for someone like that, someone who's special, you can rely on that. The Sefer Makkah says a little bit differently. That's when the Chachamim have a certain level of bitachon, and that level of bitachon allows them to get away without any sort of malacha. But again, for most people that doesn't work. For Tamei Chachamim, it works if they have this ma'ila of bitachon. Din Yaakov had a very interesting idea. He says, well, we hold this mutter to get schar for Talmud Torah, so he assumes he's going to get money through his learning. Right? His name was Rabbi Norai because he was Meir Ni Chachamim Ba'alacha. So certainly someone who's a teacher who is a benefit to the tzibur in terms of Talmud Torah can perhaps rely on money through Torah. Not only that, he says this brilliant idea. He quotes his son on it so Tosfos say that it's mutter to get schar for Talmud Torah if you don't have another umnos. So he says what it means is I'm not going to teach him any other umnos. Memela, all he'll have is Torah, and then he'll be able to get schar through Limanat Torah. So a number of different ways of explaining Rabbi Norai is basically either it's only for certain kinds of people, or you're allowed to get schar through Talmud Torah, or it doesn't really mean what he says, like the Maharsha. that it's maybe a little bit derech guzma, but he means he's just maniach the kviyas of malacha. The Ramban has a very interesting line. The Ramban is, as far as I could find, the only Rishon who really talks about this. And he says, he doesn't even explain it directly. He's like dealing with some halakhic issue of yichud, and that's like the end, and then he just throws in this one line at the very end. He says, "Maniach ani kol monio sheba olam va'osek ani batorah." Right, so it's sort of like a nice poetic conclusion to the Ramban on Maseches Kiddushin. But it's weird because the Ramban was a doctor. The Ramban made money through a parnasa, through malacha. Maybe doctors in Nikiya Bakala, certainly in those times, they didn't have these like overnight shifts in the hospital. But it seems like however you want to take the Ramban, you could probably take it different ways. But to me, it seems like he's basically saying like the Maharsha, and again the whole issue of Torah and parnasa and being paid for Talmud Torah is rechava min eretz, but it could be that at least the Rambam's perspective, as reflected here, is that it's similar to the Maharsha, that the point is just to have the kviyas in the Talmud Torah, however that's going to be expressed. Hadron alach seder Nashim b'adrach alon, daitan alach seder Nashim b'daitach alon, lo nisn sheminach seder Nashim lo asisn sheminan lo bal madin lo bal madasi. Hadron alach seder Nashim b'adrach alon, daitan alach seder Nashim b'daitach alon, lo nisn sheminach seder Nashim lo asisn sheminan lo bal madin lo bal madasi. Hadron alach seder Nashim b'adrach alon, daitan alach seder Nashim b'daitach alon, lo nisn sheminach seder Nashim lo asisn sheminan lo bal madin lo bal madasi. Arna Adonai Eloheinu es reis v'asachal v'vinu v'fifios amachal b'is Yisrael v'niyach kolonu nachnu v'tzatinu v'tzatayim amachal b'is Yisrael. Koloni yodei shemecha v'lomdei shasachal lishma yivaytach atminim tzasachal kilulam hili yihili b'isumin v'chukacha l'man lo'evosh l'olam lo'ashkach k'sudacha k'bam ch'yisanu v'rocha ta'adonai l'amedini chukacha amin 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 sela va'ed. Modani l'fanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'layavosinu shesamta chalkim yeshvei b'yas midrash v'losamta chalkim yeshvei karnos. Shani mashkim v'yim mashkimim, ani mashkim v'kudei v'yisara v'yim mashkimim v'dvarim b'telim, ani amel v'yim amelim, ani amel umkavel sachar v'yim amelim v'yim mekavlim sachar, ani ratzim ratzim, ani ratz l'chayim Olam haba v'ritzim v'rashachas, shemar b'atalim tordim v'rashachas, anshei damim u'mirma lo yachatzu yimhem, ani v'tach b'ach. Yiratzim l'fanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'layavosinu k'shem shetzatani l'sayim tzidar noshim kin ta'azrini l'haskil l'svar ma'achirim l'sayim amlim l'umod l'lamed Bishmor Vlasos Lokayim is called the Reitzim with Arasacha Ve'ava. It's close Kol HaTanoim, the Samid Chachamim, and Haniskarm Seder Nashim, Yamali Uzari Lazar Azari, Shalosam Shatorah, Mipi Zari Vizar Azari, Me'etav Yadolam, Bikuyam, Banu Mikar Shakasu, V'Lacha Chatan Chayasach, Shachochat Ishmor Lecha, V'Akitzosa Ki Sisichacha, Ki Vi Yomecha V'Yosif Locha Shnos Chaim, Orech Yimim Biminach B'Smol Osher B'Chavod, Adonai Ozan Moitin Adonai Varech L'Samol HaShalom. Yisrael Yisrael Shemei Rabba
Amen.
Yomati Wasilus Chadasa Lach Yam Yisaya Ulasaka Yasum L'Chayom Umubnei Karta Yerushalayim L'Shlach L'Allah Yichlei V'Gavah Umekar L'Chanon L'Chorab Nara L'Asala L'Chanon Dishmaya L'Asrei Yamlich Kuchav Rechuk Machosei V'Karei V'Chayichon V'Chon V'Chayitachol B'Yis Yisrael V'Agala V'Zman Karev V'Vinu Amen.
Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach V'Lam L'Amei Elmaya. Yishabach, Yismar, Yisramami, Yisnasei, V'Yisadar, Yisalev, Yisalosh, V'Yin Yikun Shab, Richu. V'Yilam, Kol B'Chasav, V'Shiyasad, V'Chasav, V'Nechad, Masad, Damram, V'Yalamav, V'Yiramei. Amen.
Al Yisrael, V'Arabban, Al Talmidei, Al Kol, Talmidei, Talmidei, Al Kol, Bandas, Kim Goraisa, Divasar, Divachol Asar, Dasar, Yelahon, L'Chon, Shalom, Arabba, China, V'Chista, V'Rachamim, V'Chayin, Arichim, Umzornim, V'Vichei, U'Prokadam, Kadam, Avon, Divishmaya, V'Aravim, V'Ramei.
Amen.
Yehi Shalom, Arabba, V'Shemaya, V'Chaim, Olinu, V'Al Yisrael, V'Ramei.
Amen.
Oseh Shalom, V'Rav, V'Yaseh Shalom, Olinu, V'Al Yisrael, V'Ramei.
Amen. Shkoyach. Shkoyach.
We have many more. Shkoyach.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Em temimai Torah Hashem temimai Meshivas nafesh Torah Hashem temimai Torah Hashem temimai Torah Hashem temimai Meshivas nafesh Oyevdu es Hashem Nemana Machkima Kimas Pesi Vayevdu Es Hashem Nemana Machkimas Pesi Shkoya. Thank you so much everyone for coming.
You're all on Subway.
Yes,
What did you say on Subway?
on Subway, yeah. My Subway series, or Subway series.
Yeah, so each other.
Yeah, I go to different days, different places. But, thank you. Yeah, we can turn this off now. All right. Thank you. Thank you for taping. Thank you everyone for coming. There's a lot of cookies and things. I learned it with a Caplan Mishnah. It was Mishnayos Bartanira, the different available that way needed, and then I had come home and figure things out.
Since when is this stuff? Like when